Hey guys, it's Edwin here, and today I'm going to share with you on the 4 steps you need to take when it comes to setting boundaries, setting and upholding boundaries with a toxic person or a narcissist or just any manipulative person in your life. We first have to understand that it's not an easy thing to actually set and uphold boundaries with a toxic person because they will keep violating those boundaries. It's not like a sober kind of arrangement where you can talk to a person and say like, hey, these are my boundaries and do not cross them. Actually, the main aim of a toxic relationship is where someone crosses your boundaries. So it may look really impossible to draw those limits when you are dealing with an abusive person because they know which buttons to press when they want to get you to do something for them, and they don't have these moral qualms of what they cannot do or what they can't do when it comes to seeking their needs. Because some of the buttons they might press are using your kids, your joint property, your family, or even threatening to harm you when you try to say no and uphold those boundaries. That's why it can be really hard to just logically set boundaries with a toxic person because they use the most sensitive things in your life or the things which you really hold dear or you cling on to. That's why you might have learned about boundaries or just your limits, but you're really struggling and you really find it hard to uphold them because the stakes are just too high. Like when you set boundaries, you might lose child support for your kids or you might get alienated from your kids. But the good thing is, it's still possible to keep boundaries with toxic people since someone who's at the center or in control of all this is not the other person or is not something outside you. It's you. Boundaries are all about you. It's all about your connection and alignment with your loving self. It's all about your deeply held values, truths, and your life. And in this video, I'm going to share with you 4 steps you need to take that will help you uphold boundaries with toxic people in your life. It can be your mother, your father, your partner, or just your ex-partner or anyone. So stay tuned. The first step you need to take is to acknowledge what's being triggered. You see, like a narcissist will use what's already within you to get to you or to make you lower your boundaries. It may sound harsh, but when we are triggered by the actions of a toxic person, there is something deep within us we've got to look at. And they are actually masters at pushing the buttons or pushing our unhealed wounds, which we might have shared with them during the early stages of that relationship. They are really good at exploiting those vulnerabilities or weaknesses so that they can psychologically torment you to do as they wish, or they can psychologically manipulate you to do as they wish. So instead of pushing away those painful feelings or being angered by your triggers, just show yourself some grace and listen to what they are trying to tell you. So they push you to the corner, or they nudge you, or they press where it hurts so that you can lower your boundaries. And as long as you interact with any toxic person in your life, even if it's your boss, they really know how to use their tongues and you will get triggered. So in this step, you are acknowledging those feelings so that you can use the narcissist, the one who's triggering you, to really grow yourself on an inner level. And acknowledging and accepting is actually a great foundational step to your healing. For example, if they are threatening to humiliate you in front of your family if you don't do something for them or if you don't lower your boundaries, then look at how you are feeling deep inside. Are you attaching your worth to how others perceive you? Are you attaching your worth to how your family perceives you? And then now we'll go to the next step. So use them to grow yourself. Don't just push the triggers away and the pain away and lower your boundaries. Just look at it and then we go to the next step. Once you've acknowledged what's being triggered, it's time to really go deeper and really address them. This is just about taking full responsibility and really doing the inner work so that next time they call you those names or next time they press those buttons, you'll just be laughing and enjoying the moment. Because One of our greatest vulnerabilities is our unhealed trauma or our unhealed wounds. And that's what provides the best landing for what they say or for what they call us. For instance, if we deeply feel that we are unworthy of love because of our past experiences, then when a narcissist mentions something that is triggering, it will scratch what was already there deep within us. Because a trigger will make that unhealed wound look fresh, or it will bring back those unprocessed traumatic memories to the surface. So, healing will now be about fully processing those unhealed parts within ourselves so that next time you meet a toxic person, their words and actions will not have a soft landing deep within us. With healing, you will see and deeply, not logically, know you are doing your best. So, an abusive person will press those buttons that make you lower your boundaries. But now, what happens when you get to the state where there are no buttons to press? That's what it means to really take full responsibility of your healing. It's more like clearing the landmines deep within us so that the narcissist will not explode inside us when they step on those boundaries. They will just pass through like the wind. Just imagine it that way. Like there's nothing for them to use in us against us to make us lower our boundaries. Going back to example, if you deeply know you are worthy of love, then what someone says about you will not even bother you because you have a solid foundation. You will not lower your boundaries to accommodate what the other person is saying about you. Even if that person is calling you names or calling you or threatening you with harm or threatening you to leave you, when you really feel that you are worthy of love, you can just let the person leave without lowering your boundaries. But when you are unhealed, you will lower those boundaries because you just feel what the other person is saying is true. Hope that makes sense. So, it's all about looking at that trigger and asking yourself, what is this trigger trying to communicate to me? Or what is it this trigger trying to tell me that I need to heal deep within myself? That's a really great perspective that will help you really uphold those boundaries. The third step is now to define yourself or to understand yourself and set those boundaries. You see, once you are in loving alignment with yourself and the past is no longer having a grip in your present life, then it becomes really easy to have a deep understanding of who you are. When you know who you are, you know that the actions of another person doesn't need to define you as a human being. You know that what's within your control is just you and no one else. Unlike before, when your definition of who you are depended on how others perceived you, you are now deeply rooted in just yourself. You can say no when something is not in alignment with your inner peace, and it doesn't even feel like a struggle anymore. Before, it will feel like a struggle, or you will just not believe it because you are carrying false beliefs about yourself. But now you are just you. So when you stand for yourself in this moment, there is no huge emotional baggage or feelings of guilt or other negative sensations because you just know you are. And you can also compromise in situations, but not because your buttons have been pressed, because you just want to. You know what's right for you. It's all about you fully taking the steering wheel of your life and embodying your deep values and truths. And that's how you set your boundaries, by just deeply understanding yourself. It's not about physically writing your boundaries, it's just embodying your boundaries. Another useful tip that can help you in this third step is, if you feel that you have to remind yourself about your boundaries, or you have to write down in a piece of paper, or you have to say it every morning like an affirmation, then it means that there's still something in there. So you just have to go back to the first step, which was acknowledge that something is being triggered, because it means that the foundation is not that strong enough. So you go to the first step again. When you know yourself, you build a solid foundation, and there's this certain feeling of ease and assurance that you carry with you. And that certain feeling of ease and assurance is now your boundaries. If you also feel that you find it really hard to keep those boundaries or to really uphold those boundaries now, then you still go back to step one till it becomes easy. Like, you don't have to remind yourself, you just know it. It's just automatic. The last step is actually a lovely one, which is really quite challenging, is you have to be willing to lose it all to get it all. In short, you have to be willing to lose everything else, even your kids, and choose you. You have to be the kind of person who is willing to lose something or somebody, but not themselves. It may sound harsh, but that's how it is. You might still be clinging to that joint property or that 50-50 parental arrangement with the narcissist and really fighting for it because you feel that it defines you as a person. There's no problem with actually fighting for it, but it becomes a problem when you are not willing to let it go on a deeper level. On a deeper level, not on the physical level. So let me explain this further. That's why it's the last step. First, work on the first 3 steps and really reiterate those 3 steps. And then now, come back to this last step. To understand this, we first have to know that a highly manipulative person or a narcissist has more tools or has more manipulative tools or has more persuasion tools in their arsenal as compared to you. For them, they can use law enforcement, death threats, or even corrupt the system just to manipulate you or just to make you lower your boundaries. Right? So, unless you are willing to get your hands dirty as well, fighting with them for those things you are clinging onto in life may sometimes prove futile. So, just give your all depending on your ability, but not at the expense of your inner peace, or not at the expense of your life, or not at the expense of lowering your boundaries. It's the actual definition of letting go on a deeper level. You cannot really let go without healing. You now let go after you've healed because you now have a deep understanding within yourself that you are trying your best. This is because if you don't have this deep willingness to let go, it will mean that you are still putting your boundaries on the line. But when you are deeply anchored in the truth of who you are and you've embraced your wholeness, you will know that you are dealing with a very manipulative person who's really good in quotes at what they do, and that those external things don't need to define you as a person. When you deeply let go, you will understand that your job, your relationship, your status, your family, your property, even your kids can be taken away from you, but your inner being or your soul will still stand still. Everything else can go, but you'll still be, because you really understand that you are giving your all. You can't fight with the system. And the narcissist is like the system sometimes. Hope that makes sense. But don't dwell so much on this point. Dwell so much on doing the first 1, 2, and 3. And then now later on, once you've really gotten to that point, step 4, you can now share your thoughts on this. Another kind of vulnerability that will make you lower your boundaries, which we mostly ignore, is this sense of obligation or this sense of duty. For example, when you feel obliged or when you feel that it's your duty to raise your kids in a traditional family unit, it means that you cannot look beyond that, and that becomes a barrier to your boundaries. You will choose to let that other person do as they wish with you because you cannot just leave the relationship, or you cannot just raise the kids as a single mom or as a single father. So when you let go, you get to the point of just love, and you drop that sense of obligation and that sense of duty. They are all part of our conditioning. Hope that makes sense. And don't dwell so much on this point, or don't share your views so much. Focus on the first 3 for now, and then later on you'll really understand. In conclusion, I want us to first clear the common mistake we make when setting boundaries with toxic people. We only focus on setting boundaries. the place we need to look at is actually upholding those boundaries. Because the thing is, if you set boundaries with a toxic person, in reality, it's not really possible to set boundaries with a toxic person because they will cross those boundaries. But the key is upholding those boundaries instead that they cannot get to you. Because they'll keep pressing and pressing. And these boundaries are not actually a separate thing from us, like out there. They are just part of who we are. And the quality of your boundaries will depend on the quality of who you are. So when you set boundaries without healing, it's like building a boundary without digging the foundation. It will work just briefly, but after a few nudges, or after it's been pushed by the wind a couple of times, it will crumble down and the toxic people will come back into your life. So heal first and then set boundaries. Don't just set boundaries physically. You are setting boundaries on a deeper level. You are the one who's in control of those boundaries. You're not letting outside circumstances to manipulate your boundaries. And that's how you really embody boundaries in your life. So though it's not about writing them down, it's about living a life where you now feel that you are the boundary and the boundary is you. There's nothing separate between you and the boundary. Hope you found that informative, guys. So keep working on yourself and boundaries will just be an automatic aspect of your being. Until next time, see ya.